If you are over 60 and feel that tonight the house is quiet in a way that weighs differently, not quiet with peace, but quiet with absence, this prayer is for you. Stay with me, and at the end, tell me how you felt. It does not have to be a night of crisis. It can be a completely ordinary night. Dinner was made, the dishes were washed, the television stayed on for a while and then was turned off. And now this is it. You, the silence, and a feeling that is not exactly sadness, not exactly longing, but has something of both. It is the feeling of a house that once had more voices. Maybe you remember exactly what it was like, the good kind of chaos of a family still living together, plans made out loud in the kitchen, the week's schedule that needed negotiation because there were many people with many things to do. It was not perfect. There were hard days, there was friction, there were things you would do differently if you could. But there was noise, and the noise you only came to understand later was a form of presence. Now the house keeps silence with an efficiency that sometimes feels frightening. The children live far away, not far in affection, far in miles, with lives of their own that became complete within a radius that does not pass through your city. You know that is how it should be. You wanted that for them. But wanting and feeling are things that do not always walk together, and at night they feel especially far apart. There are chairs in your living room that have names. You know which was each one's favorite place. And those chairs are still there, you did not take them away, maybe you do not even know exactly why, with that strange presence of an object that holds the memory of a person. There are photos on the walls or on a shelf, or in the frame on the side table. Faces you love with an intensity that has not diminished over the years. But a photo does not answer when you tell it something funny that happened today. A photo does not ask whether you slept well. A photo does not take up the physical space of a person sitting beside you. And there are friends who have been left behind. Not all at once. It was gradual, almost imperceptible. One left earlier than he should have. Another grew weak in health and the outings became fewer until they stopped. Another moved close to the children who live in another state, and the phone calls they promised would be frequent became less frequent. You understand all of that, you know the reasons, but understanding is not the same as not feeling it. The circle has been shrinking, not as punishment, not as declared abandonment, as life being life, with the losses and distances it hands out without asking permission. And what remains on nights like these is a silence you have already learned to inhabit, but that still has not stopped feeling heavy. Maybe you had a good day. You did things, took care of what needed to be taken care of, maybe even spoke with someone on the phone. But there is a difference between getting through the day and having real company. The company of someone who is in the same room with you, someone who shares a meal with physical presence, someone who notices when you have gone too quiet. That kind of company has become rarer, and at night you feel its rarity with a clarity that daytime can sometimes soften. You do not need to minimize that tonight. You do not need to tell yourself that there are people worse off, that you should be more grateful, that in your generation people did not talk about these things. You can simply be here with what you are feeling, with the quiet house, with the chairs that have names, with the circle that has been shrinking. For a few minutes you are not alone with this. I want to sit here with you tonight. And in a little while I want to pray with you, not with words that solve the unsolvable, not with quick comfort that brushes over pain as if it were not real, but with the honesty of someone who knows that this loneliness is among the oldest and hardest to name. And I want that when this prayer ends, you close your eyes with something that may be missing from these silent nights. The certainty that the silence of this house is not the last word about who is with you. Stay with me. There is a psalm that was written in the middle of a situation that, on the outside, does not seem to have much to do with yours. But on the inside, it has everything to do with it. Psalm 68, verse 6, says something that is almost startling in its simplicity. God sets the lonely in families. That is all. A short sentence, almost discreet in the middle of a long psalm full of images of battle and victory. And yet, when you stop on it, it carries a weight that does not match the small space it takes on the page. God sets the lonely in families. It does not say, God comforts the lonely from far away. It does not say, God observes the lonely with compassion. It says that God sets them in families, a word that is not abstract. Home is not a concept. It is a place. It is where you are expected. It is where there is space with your name on it. It is where your arrival is neither a surprise nor an inconvenience. It is where a person's presence does not need to be justified. And for whom? For the lonely. In Hebrew, the word used there carries the idea of someone who is alone. Someone who has been left without the web of relationships that sustained life. Someone who looks around and realizes that the circle kept shrinking until it reached a point they had never planned to get to. That word was written thousands of years ago, but it was written for you, for tonight, for this quiet house. Let me reflect with you on what this sentence reveals about the character of God, because it says much more than it seems to at first reading. First, it begins with God as the active subject. It is not the lonely find a home. It is God who gives. He is the one who acts, the one who takes initiative, the one who looks at a person who has lost the good noise of the house, who no longer has the friends who are part of the fabric of life, who has children they love deeply, but who live within a radius that does not pass through the living room where they are sitting right now, and decides this person will have a home. Not as second-rate comfort because human family could not, as a deliberate choice, as an act of a God who does not outsource the companionship of those left with silence. That says something very specific about who God is, something social loneliness tries to make you forget. He is not waiting for your human situation to be resolved and then showing up as an addition. He enters the silence as the main presence, not as a substitute for something better, but as the most real companionship there is. Second, the word home carries the idea of belonging. Think about what it means to belong somewhere. Not visit, belong. When you belong somewhere, you do not need to be invited every time. You do not need to check whether it is the right time to show up. You do not need to measure how much space you are taking up. You are simply there, and your presence makes sense, is expected, is part of what that place is. That is the kind of relationship God establishes with the lonely. Not an occasional visit, not emergency comfort for very hard nights. Belonging. A home where you are not a guest, you are a resident. And there is a third thing this sentence carries, which I need to name carefully because it is one of the most important things tonight. It is not a promise for the future. It is in the present tense in the Hebrew text. God sets, not will set, not will do it when the situation gets better, not will do it when you are more spiritually prepared. He sets. Now, in the continuous present of a God who does not have a waiting list for his companionship. Tonight, in this house, in this silence, it is as if God were saying to your heart right now, the home you missed did not disappear. It changed address. Or rather, it gained an address that no distance of children, no loss of friends, no shrinking of the circle can shut down. I know this can sound like easy comfort. And I need to be honest with you. I'm not saying that the presence of God fills the space of the chair with a name in such a way that the longing disappears. It does not disappear, and it would be dishonest to say that it does. The longing for human company, for physical presence, for a familiar voice in the same room with you is real, valid, part of being human in a way that no theology needs to hurry to solve. What I am saying is something different. I am saying that the silence of this house is not empty, that there is a presence that inhabits the same space as the absence, not erasing it, but being greater than it. That the God who sets the lonely in families is not outside tonight, waiting to be invited in. He is already inside. He was already here before you opened this video. He is the home that does not have a street address, yet is more real than any brick house. And there is one more thing this verse in Psalm 68 says, not explicitly, but through the context of the whole psalm. The psalm speaks of a God who accompanies his people in the wilderness, who walks with them on the journey, who does not send the people ahead while he watches from far away. God is companion on the road, not a companion who appears on special occasions and disappears on ordinary Wednesday nights. A companion for everyday life, for meals made for one person, for programs watched with no one there to comment, for mornings that begin without the sound of another person waking up in the house. He is there in those moments too, especially in those moments, because it is exactly in the ordinary moments, The moments no one photographs, no one mentions in conversation, the ones that pass without human witness, that social loneliness weighs the most. And it is exactly in those moments that the God who sets the lonely in families does not take the day off. He is in the silence after dinner. He is in the living room with the chairs that have names. He is there in the moment when you look at the phone and there is no new message. He is in every ordinary moment of this night that to the world may seem to matter not at all, but to him it does, because you do. That sentence from the Psalm was written in a time when the people of Israel had lost much. They had lost home, had lost structure, had lost the web of relationships that gave meaning to daily life. And in the middle of that context of loss and of silence, where there should have been noise, the psalmist wrote this almost discreet line, almost easy to skip over. God sets the lonely in families, as if to say, the losses are real, the shrinking is real, the longing for what used to be there is real. And God does not deny any of that. He enters into that reality, not over it, not erasing it, and says, even here, especially here, there is home, there is belonging, there is a presence the shrinking of human life cannot reach. That is what he is saying to your heart tonight. The house may be quiet, the circle may have shrunk, the chairs may have names that now live far away or have already departed. And still you are not abandoned in the deepest sense of the word, because the God who gives home is here, in this room, in this silence, with you, not as compensation for what is missing, as real companionship from a God who chose, from the beginning, to make his dwelling exactly where loneliness thinks it has won. Let me enter this loneliness in a more concrete way with you, because it does not live in concepts. It lives in small specific scenes that happen on an ordinary day and hurt precisely because they are so ordinary. There is a scene I imagine you know. It is dinner time, not a special dinner, the dinner of every night. You prepared something, put it on the plate, sat down at the table. And there is a second before you begin eating when you look to the other side of the table. Not on purpose. It is automatic, the kind of gesture the body makes out of habit before the mind remembers that the habit has changed. The other side is empty. Maybe you have already gotten used to that, used to it, in the sense that you no longer cry every time. But getting used to it is not the same as not feeling it. It is only learning to feel it in a way that takes up less visible space. And in that fraction of a second before you begin to eat, the weight shows up just the same. Only now you know how to swallow it along with the first bite. Or maybe it is another scene. A Saturday afternoon. Saturday used to have a schedule. There was movement, there were last-minute plans. There was the possibility of someone stopping by unannounced because that was how things worked. Houses were more porous, visits more spontaneous. The social calendar had a texture that time gradually wore away. Now Saturday afternoon has a stretch that sometimes feels heavy, not because there is nothing to do, you find things to do, but there is a difference between filling time and sharing time. And that difference becomes very clear on Saturday afternoons. You turn on the television, not because you are interested in the program, to have the company of sound, so the silence will not be complete. I know that sounds small, but it is not small. It is one of the most honest forms of loneliness there is, using the noise of some program or another so you do not have to hear quite so much of the silence of the house. And if you do that, you are not being weak, you are being human. There is also the scene of the phone. You have the habit of checking your phone with a frequency that perhaps you yourself have already noticed. You are not waiting for urgent news. You are waiting for contact. A message that says, "I thought of you today." A picture of a grandchild that came without any special occasion, just because someone thought you would like it. A voice message from a child who calls not because they need something, but because they missed you. Sometimes it comes, and when it comes the day feels different. Not radically, not in a way that solves anything, but different. Lighter, as if the proof that you are in someone's mind carries a weight beyond the content of the message. And sometimes the phone stays quiet all day, and you go to sleep with it on the little table beside the bed, its screen dark. These moments carry a thought that social loneliness produces with great consistency, and that I need to name because it is deceptive. If someone really needed something, they would call. Since they didn't, it must mean everything is fine for them. But no one called to find out whether I need anything either. It sounds logical, it even sounds reasonable, but it is a very cruel way loneliness feeds itself, convincing you that the absence of contact is evidence that everything is fine, when in truth it is only evidence that the lives of the people around you are moving at a speed that sometimes runs right over whatever does not make noise. You do not make noise, you learned not to, and social loneliness uses this silence you learned to keep against you as proof that there is no urgency in checking in, that everything is fine, that you do not need anything. But needing company is not a medical emergency. It does not require a crisis in order to be valid. And there is another dimension of this loneliness that is rarely talked about, but that I imagine you know. It is the loneliness of someone who has lost friends, not all at once, little by little. Over the years that kept taking away people who were part of the fabric of life, not in a dramatic way, but in a permanent way. Friends who shared the same season of life, who understood the references without needing explanation, who had gone with you through decades of common experience, people with whom you could sit and not have to start from zero every time, because there was an accumulated history that served as a base for any conversation. Some of those people are gone. Others drifted away because of health, distance, life reorganizing itself in ways that no longer included the same closeness as before. And what remains, when the circle shrinks like that, is a very specific kind of longing. Not the longing for one person alone, the longing for a kind of relationship, for being known for so long that you do not have to explain who you were in order for someone to understand who you are, for having company that carries context, for sitting with someone and not being a stranger or a burden, simply being someone who belongs in that conversation because you always did. That kind of companionship is not easily replaced, and social loneliness knows that and uses it to whisper a lie that must be firmly confronted. What you had is never coming back. The circle that shrank will not grow again. The season of having real companionship has passed, and what is left now is to learn how to manage with whatever remains. That voice sounds realistic. It even sounds mature, the kind of thing an adult who has faced life head-on would say to himself. But it is not true. It is loneliness disguising itself as clarity. Because it forgets one fundamental thing. It forgets that the God who sets the lonely in families did not act only in biblical times. That he is not the God of full social circles and noisy houses alone. He is specifically the God of quiet nights, of tables with an empty place, of Saturday afternoons with a heavy stretch, of phones that stay with a dark screen. It is in those places that he does not diminish. It is in those places that he comes nearer. Think of a very concrete moment tonight. You are in this room now, maybe in the armchair, maybe in bed, maybe with a soft lamp glowing beside you. The house around you is quiet. Outside there may be the distant sound of a car going by, the low noise of a television in the apartment upstairs, the wind if you live in a place that gets windy at night. And inside this room, besides you, there is something this loneliness cannot see but that is completely real. There is a presence, not a metaphor, reality. The same God the psalmist described as the one who gives home, who accompanies in the wilderness, who does not abandon the one left with silence where there should have been noise, that God is in this room now, not outside waiting to be invited in. He is inside, in the same air you are breathing, with the same specific attention of one whose mind is not somewhere else. He knows the names of the chairs that were left empty. He knows who used to be on the other side of the table. He knows every friend who has been left behind, every call that did not come today, every Saturday afternoon you filled with the sound of the television because complete silence felt too heavy. He knows. And he is not looking at that with clinical distance. He is looking at it with the care of one who truly cares, not the generic care of an entity that cares for humanity in general. The specific, personal, unmistakable care of a God who saw you tonight, with this house, with this silence, with this particular weight that social loneliness carries. There is something only someone who has reached where you have reached can do tonight. Something that seems small but carries a spiritual weight that loneliness does not want you to discover. You can take this silence that loneliness turns into evidence of abandonment, and turn it into conversation. Not a rehearsed conversation, not an elaborate prayer with all the right words. A real conversation the way you would speak with someone sitting beside you. About the dinner made for one person. About the friend you remembered today for no special reason. About the grandchildren you love with an intensity that sometimes overflows and has nowhere to go when they are far away. God can hold that conversation. More than hold it. He wants that conversation. And there is one more thing social loneliness does not want you to know about this room tonight. The prayers you have already prayed here, for children who live far away, for grandchildren growing up without you seeing them up close, for friends who departed and whom you placed into God's hands with a broken heart. Those prayers did not evaporate into the ceiling. They arrived. Every one of them. Prayed in a quiet room, to an audience of one, with the faith that was available in that moment. Sometimes a lot, sometimes almost none. But they arrived. You have not been praying into emptiness all these years. You have been praying to a God who heard, and who keeps every name you brought before him. This room has never been empty, and tonight is not empty either. In a little while I want to pray with you, the way someone prays when they know the specific weight of this night, and decide to carry with you each chair with a name, each friend who has been left behind, each Saturday afternoon that felt heavier than it should have. You are not going to carry this silence alone tonight. Let us go together. Lord, I come before you tonight with a person who is in a quiet room, and who carries in this silence a weight that the world around them hardly sees because it does not make enough noise to be noticed. It is the weight of a house that has been losing voices over the years, of a circle that has been shrinking, not through carelessness, not through anyone's fault, but through life being life, with the distances and losses it hands out without asking permission. Of chairs that have names but were left empty, of a phone that sometimes goes the whole day with a dark screen. You know exactly what tonight has been like. You know what today's dinner was, made for one person, eaten in silence, with that automatic second of looking to the other side of the table, before the mind remembers that the habit changed. You know what the day was like, what happened, what did not happen, the messages that came and the ones that did not. You know the specific weight of this loneliness, not in a vague way, not as one more case on a list, but with the attention of one who has been here all day and did not look away for a single moment. Before anything else, I want this person to feel that right now. They are not alone in this room. They never have been. If you can, take a deep breath now. Slowly. Let the air come in and go out even more slowly. And say very softly, just so God can hear, Lord, I am here, with the silence this night brought, and I need to feel that you are here too. Father, I want to begin by naming the chairs, because they carry weight, that specific kind of weight of an object that holds a person's presence. Every chair that kept a name, that now lives far away or has already departed, represents years of shared life, of meals divided, of conversations that never needed a special occasion to happen. Lord, you know every name, every face this person carries in their heart, every child they love with an intensity that has not diminished with the distance of miles, every friend who has been left behind, those who left before their time, those whose health pulled them away, those who moved and whose phone calls became rarer without anyone being to blame. I bring each one of those names before you now. Not so that you bring them back, you know what is possible and what is not, but so that this person may know in a concrete way that every person they loved and who moved out of the radius of their physical presence is still within your radius. That no name they have ever prayed for is outside your reach. That the circle that shrank for them did not shrink for you. Say with me now very softly, Lord, I place into your hands every person who once occupied the chairs of this house. Those who are far away, keep them. Those who have already departed, receive them. And help me rest knowing that your reach does not have the limit that mine does. Breathe. Father, I want to pray about the longing for friends, because that is a pain that rarely finds space in church services, in conversations, in prayers spoken out loud in front of others. It is a quiet pain, almost embarrassed by itself, as if missing friends were too small a thing to take up prayer time. It is not small. It is one of the realest pains there is. Lord, this person felt it today. Not the absence of an event, not the absence of an activity, the absence of being known by someone who carries context, of sitting with someone who does not need an explanation to understand who they are, because they were there in chapters of the story no one else remembers. That kind of companionship cannot be improvised. It has no ready-made substitute. And when it becomes rare, it leaves behind a space that is hard even to name for someone who has not lived it. Enter that space now, Lord, not to cover it up with quick comfort, but to inhabit it, to be, in that specific place, greater than the absence. May this person be able to feel tonight that there is someone who carries more context about them than any friend of decades ever could. Someone who was present in every chapter, not as a distant observer, but as real companionship in the moments no one else saw. Who knows the stories they never told anyone, who understands the references without needing explanation, who does not need to be updated on who they are because he never lost the thread that someone is you, Lord, and you have not been left behind with the years. You did not move to another state. You did not grow weak in health and stop going out. You are the only one in the circle who never shrank, the only one who is here with the same presence as always on this quiet night in this room, in this silence that loneliness turned into abandonment, but that you turn into encounter. Place your hand over your chest now, gently. Feel your heart beating. And remember, this heart was real companionship to many people over many years. And it is known, fully, deeply, without gaps, by a God who does not need a visit to be near. Father, I want to pray about the phone, about the days when the screen stays dark for hours, about the quiet waiting this person has learned not to call waiting because they learned that certain requests seem like too much. Speak firmly to this person's heart now, Lord. Wanting contact is not weakness. Missing a familiar voice is not ingratitude. Looking at the phone and wishing someone would call is not excessive attachment. It is human. It is the heart functioning exactly the way you created it to function, for connection, for presence, to be and to have companionship. May they not be ashamed of that need tonight. May they not minimize it. May they not swallow it as if it were too much to exist. May they bring it before you exactly as it is, as the honest desire of someone made for communion and who feels its absence in a real way. And may they know, Lord, that there is one voice that never takes too long to answer. That is not busy with a more important call. That will not hang up after 7 minutes because the schedule is full. That hears not only the words but what lies beneath the words, the weariness, the longing, the specific weight of each night that passed with silence weighing more than it should have. That voice is yours, and it is available now, in this moment, without waiting. Say with me very slowly, Lord, I bring my longing for companionship before you now, not as shame, as honesty. And I choose to believe that you are here in this room being the companionship this night needs. Father, I want now to pray against the lies social loneliness whispers when the house gets quiet, because they come in a low voice, almost reasonable, and they need to be confronted by name. The lie that says the shrinking circle is evidence of abandonment. The lie that says the season of having real companionship has passed, and what remains now is to learn how to deal with the silence. The lie that says the children who live far away and the friends who have been left behind are proof that life kept moving past you without stopping. The lie that says missing people is weakness, that the empty room is the natural destiny of someone who has reached this stage of life, that there is not much more to hope for in terms of presence and companionship. Those lies are not your voice. They never were. Your voice says, God sets the lonely in families. Your voice says, I am with you always. Your voice says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Your voice says that the silence of this house is not the silence of a God who went away. It is the silence within which a real presence can finally be heard, if the heart becomes still enough to perceive it. May that voice be louder tonight than any other. Louder than the sound of the television turned on to cover the silence. Louder than the dark screen of the phone. Louder than the longing for the friends who have been left behind and for the good noise this house once had. Lord, surround this room with your presence now, in a specific way, not general. This room, this silence, this night. with the chairs that have names, and with the weight this person brought without embellishment just as it was, may every thought that speeds up when the house gets quiet begin to slow down in your hands. The longing for children who live far away, in your hands. The memory of friends who departed, in your hands. The weariness of Saturday afternoons that have a stretch that feels heavy, in your hands. The quiet, waiting for a message that did not come today, in your hands. You hold what they cannot hold by themselves, and your hands know every weight by name. If you can, take a deep breath one more time now, and say, I choose to rest. I choose to trust that this room is not empty, that the God who sets the lonely in families is here, in this silence tonight. I receive your companionship now, and I rest. Father, I want to end this prayer by speaking about something social loneliness tries to steal without the person realizing it, the sense that their presence still matters, that the years of love given, of keeping a home open, of offering companionship generously, that none of it was wasted just because the circle shrank, that every person who passed through this house and left carried away something that does not disappear with distance. Lord, may this person rest in that truth tonight. May they not confuse the present silence with the erasure of what was built. May they know that every meal shared, every conversation that lasted late into the night, every time they opened the door and made space for someone, all of that had real weight. It still has real weight. And you keep every piece of it with a care no distance can erase. And about that day which will one day come for all of us, may there be no loneliness. Not the loneliness of someone who will leave an empty house for an unknown destination, because the house was never completely empty. Someone was here the whole time. And the destination is not unknown. It is the home the psalmist already described, the home God prepares for those who were left with the silence and who still did not give up seeking his presence. When this person's last day here comes, may it be in your arms, Lord, with peace, with the certainty that they were known, not by the version the world saw, but by the version you always saw, whole. With the chairs that were left empty, and with the heart that kept loving anyway. Until then, help them rest, one night at a time. And while they close their eyes now, may the last thought not be the silence of the house. May it be this: the God who sets the lonely in families is here. This room is not empty. I am not alone. I never have been. In Jesus' name, amen. If this prayer reached a place inside you that has been quiet for a long time, keep this video. Save it here on YouTube for the nights when the silence of the house weighs more than usual. You will not have to look for it. This prayer will be here, waiting for you, ready to sit with you one more time. And there is one thing I want to ask you before you close your eyes. While you were listening tonight, maybe a face came to your mind. It does not have to be someone you are close to every day. It may be exactly the opposite. Maybe it is someone you have not seen for some time, and you know without needing confirmation that the nights have also been too quiet for them. A neighbor who recently became widowed and who smiles when you meet on the sidewalk, but you know that smile that covers more than it reveals. Someone in a nursing home nearby who receives visits less often than they deserve and who has decades of history inside them waiting for someone to ask. If that face came, do not ignore it. Send this video to that person. That is all. It does not need an elaborate message. You do not need to explain anything about loneliness or about what we talked about here. And I was thinking about you today is enough. Sometimes the greatest act of love is not solving anything. It is simply letting someone know they have not become part of the scenery to someone who cares. That someone stopped, thought of them, and decided they deserved to know it. That simple gesture can be, for someone tonight, exactly what this prayer was for you. And sending this video is a way to turn the loneliness you felt into comfort for another person, to take what weighed on your chest and make it lighten the chest of someone who is also in a quiet house right now. In the next video, I want to keep praying with you, and the next step is natural, almost inevitable, because after bringing the silence of this house into the light, after naming the chairs that have names and the circle that has been shrinking, after receiving the presence of a God who sets the lonely in families on this specific night, what usually appears next is another layer of the same pain, only looking forward instead of looking around. It is the fear of the future, That quiet question that appears especially on silent nights. About what comes when the body grows more tired, about what will become of the family, about what is on the other side of this life. A question that the loneliness of an empty house makes even heavier, because when there is no voice beside you to share the weight stays whole. That fear deserves to be brought before God with the same honesty we brought tonight. And that is exactly what we are going to do together in the next video, so that peace will not stay only in this room, but will go with you into the days when the future seems too big to face alone. Now rest. Close your eyes. You are seen. You are known. You are not alone.